Welcome to the Catholic Table Talk podcast. This is where everything Catholic is on the table. New episodes Thursdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on most podcast platforms. Here's your host, William Sauber.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to episode 252 of Catholickt Table Talk podcast. My name is Billy Sauber, if you haven't known. First time to the show. We do this pretty cool show called Catholickt Table Talk, so thank you for joining us. Every week we have a guest sit down with us and either share a testimony or give us some insight about a certain topic. And we got Zach Hill right beside me here, the first-time guest, and we're going to talk about the story of Samson, which is found in Judges. I forgot what chapter, but he'll feel this thing because I got one last time. So we're going to talk about the story of Samson and kind of Zach's view of it and his insight. And I will say this, that he did share it with me at a men's group, and he shared it with a priest as well. And the priest was really, really struck by it. And he's like, I have a different look at the story of Samson now. So that's an ordained priest who said that about his thought on the story of Samson and his little story. So without further ado, so Zach, welcome to Catholickt Table Talk.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, a few.
We got talking about it, and it's always fun to sit down and talk with other guys. Sometimes I do deep dives in certain parts of the Bible and I read something that kind of strikes me. And the story of Samson is kind of one that's kind of near and dear to my heart. It's one of the first things that got me looking into faith and kind of being away from the church for many years at a time. There's a good period in my life, kind of regrettably, that I was away from faith, and one of the things that caused me to, I don't know if I looked it up in a Bible, but I might have, I think I might have used like the internet thing, like the Bible Gateway or something like that.
Sure.
But I found the story of Samson and Delilah. It was in a song that I was, actually really enjoyed by the Pixies called Gouge Away. And I found out the song was loosely based on the story of Samson and Delilah, which is in the book of Judges 13-16. And it was kind of, it's always been kind of near and dear to me. So it was one of the first things, this, kind of prior to my testimony coming back to the faith. But it was one of the first inklings I had toward looking into the church again. And I've gone, pretty well full in for a good long time now. But, things are pretty different for me. And I watch a lot of podcasts and things like that. And one of them I really like is Jesse Lee Peterson. He's that guy's always amazing. What a mess.
Yeah.
And one of the things he says to his guests, I guess you'd have to look into him. Might not be very good context for people that haven't seen his podcast. But he's a man of faith as well. He's not Catholic. But he always asks his guests a question that I was kind of befuddled by. He asks, do you have anger? And I myself, as a man with proper humility, would say, I guess I do. Sometimes.
Right.
And you always said you shouldn't have anger. And like I said, I don't necessarily, subscribe to everything that man says. But usually when I look into his stuff, I'm like, I kind of understand him. I know where he's coming from, and he makes a lot of sense. So it got me to think about it for a while, and I feel like I've got, I've got pretty good control over my anger. I always have a diplomatic way about me and things like that, but at the same time, I wonder about the difference, like, to have no anger. That to me seems a little ridiculous. I'm like, okay, we trying to divorce the concepts of, say, emotional, out of control anger,
Right.
and righteous indignation. Because even Jesus himself, we all know that he went into the synagogues and flipped tables, cracked the whip, and all that good stuff. And was it anger in the same way? Like, what are these concepts? Are they different? And so I kind of been dwelling on it, thinking about it. And then I had some trees come down here at the end of winter, and they took out my fence. I was housing my goats, and I knew spring was right around the corner, and we just got a pretty decent snowfall, so that's why the trees came down. And I wasn't properly kind of equipped to house my goats, so I brought them over to my neighbors. Thank God they were able to take them for me for a couple of, 3 weeks or a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a little bit longer than I'd like. Sorry about that.
Wow.
But winter kind of lingered on spring. But at the end of the day, the reason I bring that up is I had the goats over there, and then I went out there and I go there to play guitar and things like that, and hang out with them. And I look out the window and I see the goats out. And I went out there and, grabbed a goat, put him back in where he belonged. But I found myself like, wow, that was anger that I had right there. I was mad. And I think I'm going, they're like, it's like, oh, great stuff. I could go for that. That would not be so bad. I'm going to go over there and have me some. That's as complex as the thoughts as they get. But the goat's getting out all the time. There's something about that just kind of like fires off in your brain. And I hope you have some people that understand animals. Because I don't want to sound like a monster or nothing, but you find yourself in that anger spot,
Oh, yeah.
We've all experienced at some level, being kind of unrighteously mad at something that don't maybe necessarily deserve it. Maybe you're mad at your dog or something, or your cat or something.
Kind of read my mind. Yeah, it's definitely mostly dogs. Because if dogs take off or whatever, they don't listen to you and they go after a porcupine, and you only got a mouthful of porcupine quills, and I guess you're mad real fast. So I understand. But also, Zach, I do want to ask this question before the story continues. I'm going to throw this crowbar at you. Just like when you say you meditate on the scriptures and everything, like how long do you meditate on them? And you do like a Lectio Divina type meditation on them? How, like, is it throughout the day, or because like we both done Exodus together, and with the readings at Exodus, you kind of dwell on them throughout the day and actually throughout the week, until the next fraternity meeting. But just you yourself, because some people out there who maybe don't read the Bible every day, or they don't spend time in prayer every day. They don't meditate on the scriptures every day. But just you, like how much does that, like you said, you were struck by the anger, you follow that, but just reflecting on the wings, and how long does that take?
I'm actually glad you asked. You kind of went right to it.
Oh boy, I'm sorry.
What are you talking about? It's perfect.
Okay.
Perfect segue.
Yeah.
Exodus.
Yeah.
That opportunity where I really, I was doing, I was a catechist I was going into the catechism, and I've been through the catechism in a structured course and stuff like that. And during this period of time, I love that Exodus and those things kind of run together during the winter time.
Sure.
I got a little bit more time to contemplate. And I love that about Exodus. One of the things I really despise about, my nature, myself, not myself, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
One of the habits I have I don't like.
Yep.
Is watching them 15-second idiot videos.
On YouTube or?
Yeah. You get kind of grabbed in on, we got 17 seconds, you got 17 seconds. And imagine this thing's about to do something really cool. It's probably just going to turn out to something neat, something's going to blow up.
You're right.
There's always something satisfying about it, and you end up wasting just an immense amount of time. And during Exodus, we're not allowed to do those things, and we have to spend a certain amount of time on adoration, and that really helps, because what I started doing was journaling. So it's kind of fun when I start writing down in that book. I don't always have, I'll always kind of just start by writing, the day of the week, kind of, what the weather's like. For some reason, I always started,
Sure.
Tuesday, sunny out. But then I start talking about kind of things I'm thinking about, and darn it, anyway, I am way out in the weeds. This, that, and the other thing. And it's been kind of neat how that works. So Exodus is a huge part of it. That's actually, I wish we'd done the podcast in, say, March, because I was really deep into this. I bet you I could probably, even though I went and read up, this week and stuff, I bet you I could have delivered a little bit better message.
Okay.
Just because I was kind of in.
Sure.
And that really matters. I really get into stuff when I'm doing that.
Well, maybe next time you come on, because I know there's a couple other topics you want to discuss. Maybe we'll do that during Exodus thing. So, if you like, otherwise, if you want to come on soon, we'll have you on soon. But if you mention that, maybe we'll do that then. So.
No, I think that's a great idea. Come on, anytime you want to have me, right?
Yeah.
I'm down to contribute what I can. At the same time, too, I need to make a point of I am not a priest. I have not dedicated my life the way they have. It was something that I actually had to discuss with a friend of mine today. Introduced to faith. He was wanting to get a picture of my priest on the wall in the entryway of the church.
Oh, sure.
And I said, well, they're people worth our respect. They have kind of foregone a lot of things in their life to have us as a family. Chose to forego having a family, forego following their ambition, having a career, doing these things, having a material life a lot of ways. And if you really knew the amount of time that they had to spend studying in the Word and contemplative prayer, it is so much.
Right.
It's not just something they did like I went to college and did this thing. It's concurrent. It's ongoing. And there's kind of a reason that the Bible isn't necessarily for the laity or anybody who just wants to read.
Yeah.
That is, if you just go ahead and pick it up and try to glean out one thing that you want from it, you can pretty much justify anything you want if you just pick out one little part and try to read it a certain way. And that's kind of why it's not for everybody. That's something I'm real cautious about. I'm afraid to even talk about things sometimes because I want to make sure that you talk to a priest about it. I hadn't quite developed,
Sure. Right.
I would hate to be taking the Lord's name in vain or, misdirecting people on parts of the scripture. stuff like that. It's very challenging. I take it seriously, but I ain't that smart. I ain't God, and I have to put in that kind of time.
Sure.
The parts that I do, I take seriously, I enjoy. And I think I've had good thoughts on it. But I definitely want to leave the caveat in there that I am not a priest.
Yeah, not a Bible scholar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not some great theologian or anything like that.
Sure.
I'm just a guy who, period of time in my life, we listen to some music that turned me on to this part of the Bible. And at the end of the day, I take my faith very seriously. I really don't want to downplay that either. But I certainly don't want to come off as some kind of authority on the subject.
Sure.
But that's enough of that.
Yeah, sorry for being exaggerated.
Oh, no, it's quite all right, man. It's I just say I don't want to be rambling on your podcast.
No, I don't want you to lose focus. So you're like, I'm reading up on this, and I'm like, he's all prepared, and I get him on the rabbit hole, and he's like, let's see, we're moving again.
I know, it's great. I'm glad we got to talk about Exodus and all that. I don't think we went out in any place I didn't want to be.
Good.
Yeah. But anyhow, I found that emotional kind of anger that I don't like. That I'm like, okay, that's something in me that I think is kind of problematic. And that's it. Anybody who's handled animals or livestock in any way has gotten mad. I think that's normal.
Yeah.
I don't feel like a bad guy. But, at the same time, though, it's kind of a nice little way for God to illustrate like that is still in me. I went, that's actually worth looking into. That is not some, silly out there topic just to, some little silly thing Jesse Lee Peterson said. No, that's a real thing. Of all the things in this world, to get that kind of like hyped up, emotional mad at such a simple creature. Oh, there's great stuff out here. I can jump over this and get to it, I suppose.
Actually kind of smart.
Well, they're smart enough. They're that perfect level. That's why they're a good example. They're that perfect level of smart enough, but not smart enough to get it. I can't teach my goats nothing. If I could go and have them a polite conversation like, hey there, little buddy, you don't get out the fence. I can't protect you from the things in the wild that may come after you. I also can't control what you eat. And I'm here to feed you and take care of you. And I can do that in this prescribed location. But outside of here, it's quite the wild house. I don't have the ability to take care of you that way. It just doesn't work like that. They got to stay in the fence. You got to feed them here. And you got to find a way to keep them in there. And if I could have a polite conversation, I definitely would. But not a possibility with them. So yeah, it kind of makes this illustration for me where I was able to recognize, okay, I think this is that kind of thing that I'm not as okay with. And I want to understand that better. So I did a little bit of Googling and stuff like that and kind of thinking to myself about the stories that I know. And I was like, Samson's a pretty angry fella. I think I'm going to start there. And went over the story of Samson. But I didn't really find an answer to anger. Yeah, if anything, it almost kind of glorified it.
Yeah.
Samson's a pretty cool guy. For what he is and for what the story is. And I figure I'll kind of enlighten everybody. I'll paraphrase it. I'm going to hyphenate it. I'm going to go a little quicker in the story because we've been talking for a minute now. And but if you go to the story of Samson, I found some really cool things with it. Like I said, I eventually did find my answer for anger and the type of sin and stuff like that. But in the story of Samson, what I found before I found the answer to anger that I was looking for, I found a way to rectify the kind of conundrum you have with God's plan, God's will, and free will. And I thought that was pretty incredible because that is quite the thing to wrap your head around. So I'll start by kind of going into the story. Right in the beginning at Judges 13, it says that Israel was in a fallen state and that they were under the rule of the Philistines for 40 years. And then in Zorah, a fellow named Manoah and his wife could not bear a child. His wife was barren. Samson's mother in this story is only referred to as Manoah's wife. But in Manoah's wife is confronted by an angel of the Lord. And the angel told Manoah's wife that she is to bear a son, he is to be a true Nazarite, and he will deliver Israel from the Philistines. So that's a lot of news for a barren lady. So she, and once again, I'm paraphrasing. I think it's more fun that way. If you want to read it, go ahead and read it. It's pretty short. It can be done in about 23 minutes. Unless you like me, it might take you 50. So I'm a little slow. But anyhow, Manoah's wife goes back, tells Manoah, like, hey, Manoah, I've been confronted by an angel of the Lord, and you need to come talk to him too. So they go back and they talk to this angel of the Lord, and the angel says to him that, yep, you are to bear a son. He is to be a true Nazarite. He is to deliver Israel from the Philistines. You shall not feed him anything dirty or of the vine, and you shall not eat anything of the vine, and you shall not cut his hair. A razor is never to be touched to his head. And upon this great news, Manoah, who was skeptical originally, realizes that he is in the presence of an angel of the Lord, or God himself, and he said, we will surely die. We need to give them, some type of offering. So they brought a goat, and the angel said that he doesn't need to eat the goat, but a burnt offering would be sufficient. So they burned the goat, and then before their very eyes, the angel went up in the flames and on into heaven. And so from there forward, his wife wasn't to eat anything of the vine and wasn't to drink anything fermented, and then nothing dirty. And the takeaways I have from that are, the angel delivered this news, but it wasn't, you get to have a baby. It's it's a lot more direct than that. It's more, you will bear a son. He will be a true Nazarite, and he will deliver Israel from the Philistines. You shall not eat anything of the vine. You shall not drink anything fermented or eat anything unclean. And you shall not take a razor to his hair. Those are directives, and there's something kind of interesting about those. But then we move on in the story, and Samson goes out to Timnah and finds himself a Philistine lady he fancies. She is pleasing to his eye. So he tells his father, hey, I found this Philistine lady out in Timnah, and she is pleasing to me. Go get her for me to be my wife. And his father says, oh, is there there's not no one amongst your tribe or your people that you would find desirable here? He says, nope, go get her for me. So the father, starts making arrangements, and Samson goes to visit this uncircumcised Philistine in Timnah, and on his way, he's confronted by a lion, a man-eater, and completely unarmed, Samson tears him apart, much like you would a small goat, which is a perfect reference that we all can understand and relate to. Like, oh, about that, touch, pull the legs off a baby goat.
Yeah, you can imagine that.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I got you. I love that reference because even though we're not in a culture that really has a lot of people that still participate in livestock, like, how about that much, huh? Yeah, I get it. But He doesn't tell anybody about it. Even his family, his parents, he tells no one about it. He goes and visits this young lady, and for some reason the Philistines are afraid of Samson. Maybe they saw him tear a lion apart. I don't know. No one saw him. But that's in the book. And they decided they're going to assemble, 30 people to attend this wedding. So they assemble, 30 Philistines, and some time passes. This might be before they assembled the Philistines, but some time passes, and they're going to have a great dinner. Yeah, some time passed. Then they go to have a great dinner. On the way, Samson happens upon this lion that he tore apart, the carcass of it, and realized it has a swarm of bees inside, and there's honey in there. And Samson's like, "Don't mind if I do. Hand me some of this honey." Gets himself some honey, has a little treat, gives some to his mom and dad, but he doesn't tell them where he got it. Then they have this great feast, and they decide they're going to have 30 Philistines in attendance on her side, and then Samson proposes a little wager, or a riddle. He says, "You 30 men, I'll get you 30 garments and cloaks if you guys are able to answer my riddle. But if you're not able to answer it in the 7 days leading up to my marriage, each of you guys will owe me 30 garments and cloaks." So the Philistines are like, "Yeah, I want some of that action. Those pretty good odds,
Yeah.
And the Samson proposes his riddle, and let's see. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna look it up real quick because it's a little convoluted in the language on how they say it.
Hey, Zach, while you do that, we're going to have a short break.
Yeah, please.
So, well, I guess we're going to have to, but Jay Chow was a good friend of the show. He's going to sponsor a short break, and we'll be right back with the story of Samson of Zach Hill. Oh, I was muted.
Okay, so we're muted?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I want to
know. Okay. Yep. All right, and we're back with Zach Hill on the story of Samson. He was diving into it more with his Bible, so we'll get back in the story.
Yeah, sorry. Out of different translations, say it a little differently. And the first Bible I had that had letters for me to read it was a Protestant Bible. So I had to go and order, and this one still has letters are still a little small for me. I need big old letters on there because I don't feel like wearing readers. But anyhow, the riddle is a little convoluted in our language for sure, and I'd have to it'd take an awful lot to learn Greek. So out of the Bible here, the riddle goes: out of the eater came food, and out of the strong came sweetness, which is a hilariously ridiculous riddle in my opinion.
Sure.
Well, clearly nobody could possibly know what on earth you're talking about. It's like something a kid would make up,
Yeah. It'd be like a very, very hard one to scavenge or hard to clue or something.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that refers to, I walked by Casey's on the way here and had myself a Butterfinger. I can't even think of a good analog for that. But anyhow, this riddle, kind of preposterous on its face in a certain way. I find that kind of an enjoyable thing about it. But anyhow, in the story, 3 days go by, and they can't figure it out. So these Philistines start pressuring his wife to be, who was unnamed, and they start kind of badgering her with like, "What'd you bring us here to make yourself rich? Come here to make fools out of us?" And all of a sudden, like, these are her people that they brought into this thing, sure. And they're about to lose a wager that they really entered into, but at the same time, kind of ridiculous in its nature, the whole thing. Yeah. And there's also, it does say that they were afraid of Samson, which, for it's not listed anything prior to that or why. But anyhow, she starts to pester Samson, bugging him all the time with the answer to the riddle. And he hasn't even told his parents, the answer to the riddle. But over enough time, it's pestering him. And, "Oh, Samson, tell me the answer to your riddle." She's a lady. She's got a higher voice. And
I like it, though. That's good impersonation.
Yeah. Hopefully, I don't have to lecture when there's any women talking. I'll know how to do it. Make for a very interesting mass.
Yeah, well, especially afterwards.
I just, it's fun to read it that way. But anyhow, she annoyed him so much, for the first few days, he said, just leave me be. I haven't told anyone, not even my parents. There's no good reason to tell you. And finally, on the seventh day, she, pestered him and annoyed him in such a way that he finally told her the answer to the riddle. And then before the sun set on the seventh day, the 30 men came and said, what's stronger than a lion and what's sweeter than honey? And Samson's proper ticked. He said, "Well, unless you plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't know the answer to my riddle." So Samson goes into another village, can't recall the name of, and ain't exactly relevant to the story. But he goes into this village, it's a Philistine village, and he kills 30 men, takes their garments and cloaks, and gives them to him. He's like, "Here you go, guess you won."
Just like that.
Yeah, so the Philistines aren't too happy with him on that. He went and killed a bunch of their friends, got on their stuff. But he's a man of his word. He made up for his wager. Yeah. And then some time passed, and he went to go retrieve his wife. So he went to their father's house and asked to go into her room. And father said, "Oh, I thought you hated her, so I went her off to your best man. You can have my other daughter here. She's younger and hotter, You can have this one." And Samson wasn't satisfied with that answer at all. So, in a rage, he took and captured 300 jackals or fox and tied their tails together, and in between their tails tied a torch and lit them ablaze and set them loose in their wheats and their olive harvest and everything. So their food for the winter, how they're going to sustain themselves, they got burned up. And now the Philistines are ticked. And Samson went and hid up in a cave in a cliff. Depends on the translation. And the Philistines, they come to the house and they're like, what caused this? Why did they burn our entire harvest? What happened? And the father said, told them what happened. So they took the father and his daughter and they burned them. And then they went to Judah and the Israelites, and they're like, "Hey, where's Samson at? We're fixing to get him." They sent 3,000 men. Or let's see, maybe they summoned 3,000 men from Judah. Either way, they went up to the cliff or the cave and got Samson and said, like, "Hey, man, we're under the rule of the Philistines. You burned their entire harvest. What are we going to do with you? We have to take you to him. So Samson goes, all right. You guys can have me as long as you don't kill me. So like, yeah, we're not going to hurt you. We're not going to kill you, but we have to give you to the Philistines. So they tied him up with 2 ropes, and marching back along the way, the ropes became weak, and oh gosh, like a wicked to flame, whatever their reference is, the burnt rope. And Samson pulled it off and saw the fresh jawbone of an ass. And he picked up this jawbone of a donkey, and he killed 1,000 Philistines with it. And he stood up on a hill and said, with the jawbone of an ass, I struck down 1,000 men. And, tossed it away. And then he went and ruled as a judge in Philistine for 20 years.
That's one.
Yeah, it's kind of abrupt in that way, too. Like, he just beats a bunch of them to death. And I imagine these Philistines are like, well, I guess we can't really do much about this guy, because not from the Bible or anything. Just immediately goes on to be a judge for 20 years. Oh, and actually not immediately. After he, clubbed 1,000 men to death with the jawbone of an ass, he was dying of thirst in the desert, and he looked up to the God and said, "You delivered this great victory upon me, and now you leave me here to die of thirst in the desert." And God opened up a stone, and he was able to draw water from it. And it's an actual place that if I ever end up going to Israel, I'm definitely going to visit, because Samson's been a big part of my spiritual journey.
What part of Israel is it?
Oh, well, we'll do it real quick. It's a short story. It won't take long to just look it up. But, the jawbone of an ass, I've piled them as a heap. With the jawbone of an ass, I've slain 1,000 men. And being thirsty, cried the Lord and said, "You have put this great victory into the hand of your servant. Must I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" Then God split the cavity in Lehi, and water issued from it. And Samson drank till his spirit returned, and he revived. Hence it is called En-Hakkore, Hakkore, in Lehi to this day. Please excuse my pronunciation. En-Hakkore. And then in the very next sentence, Samson judged Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. Okay. and then Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute, and the people of Gaza were told Samson is here. So the Philistines, they decided that they were going to, try to murder Samson. So they got a posse together, and they were going to wait. They surrounded the building. They were going to wait until morning to attack Samson, and they were going to slay him in the morning. But then Samson, in the middle of the night, at midnight, got up and picked up the doors, the gates of Gaza, and the pillars that supported it, and carried it up on a hill and set it down. That's that part of the story. And set it up on top of a ridge opposite Hebron, if you want the exact verbiage. And then next, Samson fell in love with Delilah. And when Samson fell in love with Delilah was approached by the Philistines, and they said, "Hey, trick him into telling you the source of his strength, and we'll all give you 1,100 shekels or silver pieces." And so Delilah, said to Samson, "Oh, Samson, tell me where you get your great strength." And Samson, he lies to her. He says, "Tie me up with 2 fresh bowstrings that have never, 7 fresh bowstrings that have never been plucked, and I'll be as weak as any man. My strength will leave me, and I'll be like any other man." So that night, she ties him up with 7 bowstrings that have never been plucked. In the middle of the night, she goes, Oh, Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you! And, sure enough, the Philistines barge in, and Samson breaks them as easily as whatever idiom. As easily as a string in the fire, whatever it may be. Yeah. And then she goes, oh, Samson, you made a fool of me, You don't tell me you don't love me and all this good stuff. So he goes, all right. If you tie my hands up with 2 ropes that have never done any work, well, my strength will leave me and I'll be as weak as any other man. So, ties his hands up, same thing. Samson, Samson! Philistines are upon you. And he breaks them out, kills them. And then she gets mad again. Oh, Samson, why would you tell me your secret? You don't love me. You've made a fool of me. So the next night he said, all right, braid my hair up with 7 braids of some kind. And she braids his hair up with these 7 braids. And Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And once again, he breaks loose from that and, kills those guys. And then she finally, he gets so mad, he's so exhausted with her, he finally tells his heart. He finally tells her the truth. He finally tells her that if my hair has never been, razor's never been taken in my hair, cut my hair and I'll be as weak as any man. And then she goes and summons the Philistine and says, tonight is the night. He has told me his heart.
Which, if I can interrupt, if I was the Philistines, I would probably think double twice. I would think double about going in there again, because it's like, if I was a Philistine and she told me that, I'm like, well, 3 of my, 3 other guys or 3 other groups tried and now got killed, so why? You know what I mean? Like, if I was a Philistine and she told me that, going to get him, and that's only happened 3 other times, you're like, do I really want to go in?
Yeah. Well, these guys know that this time he had spoken his heart. She assured them that he had spoken his heart, and she knows. Which is kind of the funny part of the story, too, because this time they show up with the 1,100 silver pieces, and she puts him to sleep in his lap, or in her lap, and they cut his hair, and the Philistines take him, and the Lord's strength had left him, and they immediately gouged his eyes out, and then put him to forced labor of some kind, grinding wheat, and doing things for their amusement. And the Philistines, after they take Samson, they say, our God has delivered us, the enemy, the ravager of the land, who has multiplied our slain. They're going to have a big old celebration of it. And they filled up the Colosseum. Like I said, he was a prisoner who was to, grind wheat, I imagine, like some kind of, barbaric thing where he's like pushing around with it. I have like some kind of medieval thing in my head of, just doing this drudgery.
Sure.
And then they have this, party in 1999, whatever they called it back then, and they got Samson, and he's going out in front of all of them for their amusement. They're piled up 3,000 more. They're piled up even on top of the roof of this Colosseum. And Samson says to the servant that is, kind of guiding him around. And he says, hey, you prop me up on these 2 pillars. That way I'm able to stand on my feet. So the servant helps him, prop himself up. And Samson calls upon the Lord. Oh, and as Samson goes to his drudgery, his hair continues to grow. God never left Samson fully. And Samson calls upon the Lord and says, Lord, give me the strength one last time. And God gave him the strength, and he pushed down the pillars and killed them all. and he delivered Israel from the Philistines. And that's always a fun story, because in the story, like Samson was pretty awesome. He was strong enough to do, dang on anything. He killed 1,000 men with a jawbone of a donkey, tears apart a lion like he would the limbs off of a young goat. He beds down with plenty of them uncircumcised Philistines, harlots, all those good things. He served as a judge for 20 years. He's a pretty cool fella. And anger in that story was consequence-free. He got angry, burned all their fields, and they came to get him, and he beat him to death for it, and went and served as a judge afterward. There's really not something to lead away for that, right? But I look at the story of Samson, and he's always described as a strong, handsome, charismatic fellow, because he was strong enough to do anything, and charismatic enough to have all these ladies, and charismatic enough and intelligent enough to be a judge. I want to say that his riddle kind of alludes to a sense of humor. And you look at this guy, and he died without a legacy. He died without a family. There's no family to speak of, so he has no lineage. He died blind. They gouged his eyes out, in a pile of uncircumcised Philistines as a prisoner and a slave. He had no country. The Israelites themselves turned him over to the Philistines. He had, no women. They had all deceived him. He had no friends. His wife, his first wife had been wed off to his best man. He died with nothing, as nothing, with nothing. And it's a really sad story when you really think about it. Everyone always wants to look at he still had faith. His hair continued to grow and called upon God. And it's a really wonderful story that he called upon God. And God did not give up on Samson, even though the Samson had betrayed, kind of what he was supposed to do. Not cut his hair. That was one of the very few directives that he had. And, but he still was able to have God's power and strength. And then, of course, the women, I remember reading that story, and I'm like, all right, so in this story, every time he tells anything to a woman, she tries to kill him or get him, or robbed of 30 cloaks or whatever it may be. And it's clearly going to happen over and over again. Tie my hands up. Tie me with this type of rope. Put something in my hair. And he keeps doing it. I'm like, what are you doing? It's kind of like almost uninteresting. It's redundant, Yeah. But then I look back at my life, and some of the people I know, kind of tracks. What? In a certain way, like, there's lessons to be learned here. Not to be too, but those are always the surface level lessons that we take away from it, right? Oh, yeah. But when I look at that story now, since I was on kind of this search for deeper meaning, I didn't find it. Wasn't there. It was consequence free. But I look at Samson and I go, wow, the strongest, most intelligent, charismatic, coolest guy died a blind slave in a pile of rubble amongst the uncircumcised Philistines with nothing. And then I started thinking about the directive in the beginning. You shall be a true Nazarite. You shall deliver Israel from the Philistines. I'm like, oh, that was God's plan. And God's will was for Samson to do that. And it was going to happen either way. But free will. Samson disobeyed his parents. He disobeyed the warning signs from God when he sent the lion out to stop him from going and visiting that Philistine in Timnah. Samson strayed away from God's path. He used his free will. God's will be done. Right. But Samson was intelligent, strong, charismatic. He probably could have delivered Israel from the Philistines by raising a great army and having many sons to carry on his lineage and to be a hero amongst his people and to have many friends, a great wife and a family and all these things. He had all that capability, but he allowed his eyes to direct how he lived his life, which is why he died without them. I think it's very interesting that they took his eyes. And I look at that story and I go, wow, that kind of illustrates how God's will, God's plan, and free will can all exist together. At least that's kind of what I take from it.
Circles back and what's going to happen. Whether it's because, like the states, for example, they really follow more so God's will, and they said yes more to his plan, I should say, if I may. Well, I'll call it the state, so how am I going to try and put this? But maybe the more of a sin, which deep dive into sin, God can still work through them, and they can still, his will can still work through them if they come back to him, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I say over and over again that redemption is for everyone. And it actually, as I thought more about it, it actually got me to understand the nature of anger, the thing that I was originally after. And I figured out, I like to think that I have a better idea of the type of anger that is sinful, where I think that the type of anger that is sinful is something that limits your ability to act in free will, or limits your ability to act in God's will. Yeah, you know how that anger can kind of take over you and become, you get strong. You get strong like Samson. And it kind of takes over you. And that would be kind of the difference between, the type of anger and righteous indignation that would separate those two. And it's kind of the nature of all sin. The difference between love and lust, something that takes over your free will. Greed, gluttony, all the things, different kinds of sin. That's kind of the nature of sin. There's things that affect your free will and your ability to follow God's will. They really are constraining in that way, where it takes away our free will. And that's what I figured out for that nature of sin. I hope that was a fun way to get there, I guess.
Yeah. Sometimes
I feel like I tell the story better than others. I always wish I could take that perfect time by the fire and just put it in a little jar, open it up, have me a sniff every once in a while. That was nice. But
no, like you said at the intro, it's like when you have a priest tell you that I have a different approach of how I view that story now too. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean,
yeah, it's very flattering, and
yeah,
it actually, the next thing that I wanted to get into was actually going to be pride, because pride is I wanted to do anger, and I kind of exercised that or figured it out. And the next one I wanted to go into was going to be pride. Pride is a very challenging concept. Because
for those people who have pride, that's kind of prideful.
Well, all of us have pride, right? Yes. And I mean, even to say something like a concept like, I have mastered my pride. What a prideful thing to say.
Yep.
Or I understand pride. Even tone it down a little bit, but still, that's a very tricky concept, right? And yeah, even doing like I said, little talks like this where we enjoy ourselves and stuff like that. Oh man, it always has to be, glory to God, first and foremost, always. and trying to understand these concepts for how to better serve God and things. And I don't have that concept ironed out very well. I don't have anything really neat or charismatic to say at this point in time. Just that I feel the need to kind of dive into that as my next little endeavor into figuring things out. And I kind of have an approach that I do better in Exodus, but I try not to just like going, I don't say Google, what would be a good reference for pride in the Bible. I kind of let the book tell me where to go. And I haven't been driven in that way yet. So I don't think I can have such a thoughtful thing unless I have a kind of a means of getting there, like I did with the story of Samson.
Sure.
And, anger and stuff like that. That made sense in a way that I was able to kind of track my way to it. And I think that's how I was able to have something decent to say about it. I think if I just kind of looked up, let's see what section is supposed to pride in this, and and not to say that you can't do that or anything like that. Just it hasn't happened to me organically, I guess.
Sure.
So that's kind of my next thing.
Okay. Yeah. We'll definitely have you on the show once you dive into it.
Yeah, it'd be great. And chances are too. The other thing that happens is I start writing stuff down in here. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I'm going when I start with it. I kind of have my ideas and then I expand on them, and then I don't, okay, I like the way that sounded, but I need to elaborate more on that. I end up way out in the weeds from where I started. Something will be in my heart, and I'll start writing about it, and then I just keep expanding on that idea, and that's kind of how I get to where I'm going with these things.
Sure. Well,
yeah.
Well, Dr. George Sheriguma, a big sponsor of the show, as you saw in the intro, he really encourages journaling. He's been on the show multiple times, and he's, I think, said to me more than once, you should journal, and I never have. But so journal is a big thing. Just like you said, whatever's on your heart. Then you said talk about what type of days outside you best start with, and then where that leads. And like you said, it kind of goes down a different way from what you were probably thinking about, but it's really a good way to connect with what you're feeling, and connect with God. In that sense, to what He's telling you in that moment. So definitely. Do you have any last words about the story of Samson? Anything you ever touched on?
No, I think we got into it pretty good. Like I said, it might not be my most awesome charismatic telling of the story of Samson and things like that, because when I'm really into it in the beginning, I get way deep into it and I really obsess on it. I get it worked out pretty good.
Sure.
And like I said, I kind of enjoy telling the story a little. I don't know, kind of fun. Don't mind if I do. Kind of, I haven't decided on, but I think that anybody can pick up and read a book, and as long as it's really tough. You got to be really careful about inferring meaning and motive and stuff like that. So it's kind of tough, but I think we covered that pretty darn well. I don't feel like I missed anything too much in there. But yeah, it's been a really neat journey, and it's very humbling to have people want to hear what I have to say about it. And it's, gosh, we won the book of Numbers. I love talking about the snakes. That's one of my favorites. It turns out that's been done pretty well. I guess I told my other buddy who's much more well read than I am. He's like, oh yeah, people have expanded on that the same way. I was like, yeah, but I figured it out. It's kind of fun. I like fixing your own stuff or something. I don't know. And I don't necessarily come up with something different. In fact, that isn't really the endeavor. The endeavor is truth. And a lot of you do the same place because truth is truth. So I'm feeling a little rambly. I'm trying to think of. We got, railroad days and stuff like that. So I hope to see a lot of people out there. And I just hope I'm Being a decent enough representative of faith and doing God's will. It's very tough. It's wonderful and fun and stuff like that. It's tough to know when you're doing the right thing, and I'm trying awful hard. So,
well, I'm sure that's all. I mean, that's what God wants, is us to try our best. So, I mean, only on last day we'll know where we taught a sag for sure, and how many different areas and stuff, and where we did the right thing. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I do like you pointing out the story of Samson and Judges, because just doing I think it was Father Schmidt's Bible in the year, where Judges were, I don't know how you put it, but it was like really harsh, really like messy, really like not a lot of people like reading Judges, but the story of Samson kind of gets lost in there. So I'm glad that you brought that up too, because just when you said it's in the book of Judges, my first thought was, oh yeah, Judges. Not many people like reading the book of Judges, because it's, like I said, not really great things in it. But I'm reading the book of Maccabees, and there's not a lot of good things in that one either. A lot of people getting killed and stuff too. But yeah, I think for House of folks, he said last time we talked, he is a catechist teacher. Are you doing that again this year?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where he gets this great storytelling on this, what you do. So I think that's how you entertain the kids, because it's 5th grade, right? Still, or?
I think so.
Okay.
I need to actually call Nikki and stuff like that, but that's because I think I had a choice on the stuff, and I just want whoever's the most difficult group is probably a good place for me to be.
Sure.
And gosh, on the upper levels, I'm really happy that we have Jay up there.
Oh yeah.
Because there needs to be people that are a lot smarter than me,
Sure.
Because myself, don't get me wrong, I try real hard, and I take it serious and I read, but I'm not necessarily the best source of information for anything. Yeah, like I said, I try.
Yeah.
And I care, but at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of people out there that are a lot smarter than me and more serious people than I am.
Sure.
I might like that a little too much fun. You gotta, when you're teaching and stuff, you have to balance it to the taking it serious, getting it done, getting the things illustrated, and enjoying ourselves too. In certain ways, I do certain things. But it turns out that particular age group, it happens to be where they just love like a military structure.
Sure.
Go through the stuff, and then we go out and play in the playground and stuff like that. I just fall in, and there they go. And I drill them on the question. What does this mean? They'll sound off at once. But, all right, carry on. And they'll go back to playing.
Sure.
But boy, they love that kind of stuff. So I'd like to think that's a pretty good way to go about it. I like that kind of military structure and stuff. I think that's good for that age group. So
sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, Zach Hill is a fellow knight on Exodus, and really active guy in the church here at Sacred Heart Actually, and I mentioned this at the start. Thank you for Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Staples, Minnesota, for having us here tonight after hours. Really appreciate it. And yeah, he's an active guy in the faith, active guy. If you come to Staples, you'll probably see him at the door, or lector, or he'll be around, that's for sure. So